Destroyed 2 apartment buildings in Harlem. 3 people are dead, 9 unaccounted for, and the number of injured continues to rise. The powerful blast happening around 9:30 Eastern Time this morning. A utility company says it sent a crew to investigate reports of the smell of gas, but they arrived after it blew up. The explosion shook the entire New York City neighborhood and blew out windows more than a block away.
When I was living in the building, they flew out when the blast hit. And they knocked everybody into the debris. My windows, I heard boom, and my windows rattled. I ran out the apartment because it sounded much closer than it was.
Well, for the latest on this situation, Mi-Young Lee joins us now. And Mi-Young, let's start with the residents still unaccounted for. What do we know about them?
Well, at least 9 people, as of the latest reports, believed to be residents of the 2 apartment buildings. Now, we have to remember that they're being called unaccounted for or missing because they don't know if they were actually in the building during the time of the explosion. They could have been out of the building or sought shelter somewhere else and not have checked in. But still, that didn't stop many people who could not reach family members who lived in the building from rushing to the scene after learning about that explosion in East Harlem.
My daughter in the corner. I want to know if my daughter's fine. I want to know if she's there or not.
And as you heard, that explosion could be heard and felt 7 city blocks away in this very dense neighborhood of East Harlem with buildings very closely packed together. Witnesses reported seeing people trapped in their cars as windows were being blown out and debris was strewn throughout the streets. We learned that fire crews only took less than 2 minutes to arrive on the scene since getting first reports of that explosion. And when they arrived, it was a desperate search and panic to clear out the rubble to see if they could find any survivors. We do know they've managed to pull some of the injured out, and that number, Ian, is also rising. At this hour, we're learning 52 people, according to the mayor of New York City, injured by the explosion. One woman at Mount Sinai Hospital suffered heavy head trauma. She's in critical condition. We were told that she was dug out by firefighters from rubble at the base of the building. Also, some of the injured children as well, as we're learning. But doctors say the majority of the people they've seen so far not seriously injured.
Some of those pictures, Mi-Young, ground level especially, you just see the tremendous force from that explosion. What do we know about what caused it and the investigation into that?
Well, there has just been a briefing from the National Transportation Safety Board, and you may wonder why the National Transportation Safety Board. They're involved with anything to do with transportation, including of hazardous materials, so they're looking into the pipeline. They said they're going to look at 3 things. If there was third-party damage to the pipeline, if in fact there was the pipeline itself, it was in working order. As well, they're going to be investigating Con Edison, the gas company, who, in looking at their phone call logs to see how many people, in fact, did call in and report smells of gas. Con Edison saying they received 1 call 15 minutes before the explosion, but their crews didn't reach that time enough. But now we are hearing more reports from the scene as more witnesses coming forward saying they too heard rumblings of gas and smelled gas in and around their apartments. Now, the crews on the scene, the firefighters there, they're still considering this a rescue mission, and they say they're still searching for bodies, still looking for survivors.
All right, Mi-Young, thank you.
The plan right now is to extinguish the fire. We're doing surface removal at the present time. We have to clean the sidewalk of the debris and the brick to check to make sure that there was nobody on the sidewalk or the street. And then once the fire is under control and extinguished, we will start to do some surface removal, some debris removal.
And one last point, Ian, a major concern at this hour is, though the 2 buildings have collapsed, there is one of the buildings that is in a precarious position, the skeleton still standing, and crews are worried about that part of the building coming down on top of the more than 200 firefighters that are clearing debris right now on the scene. So we'll be watching that throughout the hour.
Mi-Young Lee live in our newsroom. Thank you. CBC producer Rob Heydari is on vacation in New York City, and he went to the scene earlier when he heard what happened, and he joins us now live. And take us back to that moment. It would be shocking anywhere, but I think particularly New York City to hear and feel a blast. Where were you, and what was the immediate reaction that you saw?
Well, right off the bat, when I found out about the explosion, I was actually just getting off the subway. And so people were emerging from the subway, phones were beeping. We were in Lower Manhattan when it happened. And you just heard people whispering, saying, have you heard there's an explosion, a building has collapsed, what's going on? But it's such a bustling city, everyone in Lower Manhattan just kept moving around. It was actually people from Toronto who alerted me to the seriousness of the situation, and so I headed up to where it was happening, and I found this street here, 116th, completely cut off. It was filled with first responders, the NYPD, the fire department. There was large amounts of media that were starting to congregate. There were maybe about 15 of us there at first. But basically, it was a street that was completely cut off. People had fled the scene. The only people you saw around here were first responders and the media.
And we can, of course, see some fire trucks in the background there. What's the scene like more generally in the neighborhood this evening?
It stayed about the same. There's not a lot of people around on the street where it's happened itself. What I'm finding really unusual, given the severity of the situation, is that anywhere where things aren't closed, you're seeing people going about their business as normal. There's very much a keep calm and carry on vibe around here. Just down the street, there's people working out in the gym. There's people all around here getting their hair cut, going to the shop and picking up groceries. But right in the block where the building collapsed, just first responders. It's very much the same as it was this morning, but you move one block north, south, east, west, and you see people going about their day as normal. It's as if they're just trying to keep calm and let people do their jobs here so that they can move past this.
And just one last quick question. I don't know how close you've been able to get recently, but is there a sense of urgency there? We heard from Mi Young Lee here in our newsroom that the authorities are treating this as still a rescue mission, so speed must be a key issue for them.
One of the concerns here, speed-wise, is that the weather is actually getting quite a bit worse. It's been pouring rain for most of the night, and it's getting colder. So on top of all of the water that they've poured into the buildings to put out the flames, there's concern that it might freeze, that they'll have difficulty as we hit the overnight period and going into the morning with avoiding slickness, staying safe themselves as firemen and as police officers here. At the same time, there's a lot of people who are still missing, and they need to try and find them as well. So there's a real sense of just get it done. Everyone is working really efficiently here, and the general population seems to just be staying out of their way.
All right, well, we really appreciate you giving us the lay of the land there. CBC producer Rob Heydari in New York City tonight.